Now, this first amazing true story comes from Mark Mackey, who was an assistant pastor at the Anaheim Vineyard in Anaheim, California, in a message he gave in June of 1997 called, "How Can We Be Used by God?"
Story of a divine encounter, a divine appointment, that's probably my favorite one. It happened shortly after the, I think it was Healing 87 conference. We had some people who came and stayed with us during that conference. We didn't know them before the conference. And afterwards, one of them remained and wanted to go to Disneyland. So we went to Disneyland, Julianne, my wife, and me, and a friend of ours that we had just met named Rana. And we met someone else at Disneyland who was also in the ministry and had been ministered to by Rana in the past. So we were spending the day. It was a Saturday. Disneyland was packed. It was sunny. There were hour and a half wait for most of the rides. And about 6 o'clock, we were waiting in line for the Blue Bayou restaurant. And we got in line, and there were a group of 3 young ladies in front of us. One was like in her early 30s, and the other 2 were teenagers. And one of them had a severely crossed eye. I think it was her right eye was severely crossed. And it was so much so that you could tell she couldn't really see out of that eye. And of course, we'd just been to a healing conference, so I was sitting there praying under my breath, you know, Lord, what do you want to do? And at one point, the 30-year-old lady in front of me stayed in line, and the other 2 went off to do something because it was going to be an hour wait for the restaurant. And since I was the only guy in line, I got to hold the place in line, and the 3 ladies got to go shop in New Orleans Square. So about 10 minutes before we got into the Blue Bayou, everybody came back and converged, and I was still praying because the girl with the crossed eye came back. And I looked over at Rana, and she was kind of nodding her head. I could tell that the Lord was speaking to her, and I said, "Is the Lord speaking to you?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, are you going to pray for her?" "No, not now." Okay. So we got in the restaurant. We sat down. I didn't even see where they sat down. And I asked Ron, I said, "Well, are you going to go over and pray for her here?" She said, "No." "Well, are you going to make an appointment to see her later?" "No." "Well, what are you going to do?" "The Lord showed me we're going to bump into them later." Now, this is a packed day at Disneyland. If you lose somebody that you want to look for, you can't find them, okay? And right around 10:30, we were in line for Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. I love the fact that God can do things at Disneyland too, right? We were in line for Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, and Rana said, "We're going to bump into her at the Main Street Electrical Parade." Those of you who know history, there used to be something called the Main Street Electrical Parade. So we got off of Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, and the parade was going to start pretty soon. And you know what, if you've been there, you know what happens to the street. I mean, it's just covered with people. So Rana just starts marching through people and climbing over ropes, and we're marching. There's 4 of us marching behind her, you know. And she got out into the middle of Main Street and marched down Main Street, which you're not supposed to do. But we're marching behind her, and she stopped midway down Main Street where there's a break in the buildings. And she's from Canada. She hadn't been to Disneyland much. She said, "Is that an ice cream shop over there?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, we need to wait on the street right there, because when the parade starts, she's going to be in that T-shirt shop." This was quite a word of knowledge, okay? So we stood there, and the parade started, and we looked over, and there she was, in the T-shirt shop. Now, if that was the end of the story, I'd be satisfied. But she went in, and she was able to pray for the girl and basically said, "You really must forgive your brother." And the girl was startled, and she said, "You don't know my brother. You don't know what he did to me. I can never forgive him." She said, "I do. The Lord showed me." And the Lord had shown her a picture of them playing with sticks as kids, and the little brother poking her in the eye accidentally with a stick, and her being permanently injured in her eye. And the girl started crying and said, "Okay, God, I forgive my brother." And she was healed on the spot. Pretty amazing. Rana has gotten a certified letter from her doctor saying it was inoperable. It was like totally healed. It's incredible.